Why can a mother tigress take an unsuccessful hunt for great luck? How will elephant parents behave in case of an emergency situation? Is it true that hens are ready to challenge even snakes for their offspring's safety? Keep watching until the end and you'll learn everything. Today, I'll show you how animal parents care for their cubs. And before we get to the video, I suggest that you take a look at one extremely disturbing and unusual photo I found on the web. According to the comments of its author, this situation happened early in the morning. Two snakes came to the chicken's house at once. The first one laid its eyes on the eggs from the side, whereas the second one decided to try its luck with the hen and the eggs she was incubating. I think if the snakes had limited themselves to one thing, their attack would have been successful. They chased two birds at once and caught none. The hen, if the comments are to be believed, chased both of them away and protected the chicks. What happened in our next video is much easier to explain. The African wild dogs had set up their new home safely, as it seemed to them, and did not expect to see any predators nearby. But unfortunately, their expectations did not coincide with reality. And in the middle of the first day, the honey badger got on the track of the dogs. These small but completely fearless creatures are ready to do anything to get what they want. The only thing that can stop them, as it turns out, is the maternal instinct. Under it, any, even knowingly weaker creature can win. And African wild dogs are no exception. Noticing their opponents, they decided not to let them too close to their home and let them know that they're not to be messed with. As you can imagine, they succeeded. The honey badgers, to my surprise, only hissed back a couple of times, and that was the end of their aggressive actions. Most likely, the attackers realized that the parents would fight for their cubs to the end, and at that moment, such a fight was simply unprofitable for honey badgers. When the strangers turned around, the African wild dogs stomped back in the house, took the cubs, and decided to move to another, safer place that other predators would not be aware of. Other equally caring mums are, of course, lionesses. In the pride where they live, everything is organized extremely seriously. Everyone is obliged to help their neighbors, and females are no exception. If a lioness decides not to provide support, she can be expelled, and it will be the main disgrace in her life. However, lioness mums tend not to care much about this. As soon as they're pregnant, they may leave the pride. They find a more peaceful environment and give birth to their offspring. During the first period, when the cubs need special care, the mothers do not seek help either. They think they can fend for themselves, and frankly speaking, this also proves their behavior toward other animals, including stranger lionesses. A mother and her cubs were out for a walk and at a certain point decided to stop. Only another female got in her way. It goes without saying that such an individual could easily be dangerous for both the lioness and her cubs. That's why the mother had to act decisively. She left the cubs alone and went to deal with the stranger. After a couple or three blows, the stranger realized everything and left, but not too far away. And then, what surprised me the most, the cubs went in her direction. When one cub approached the strange lioness, it did not bother her. But when two cubs started circling around, she barked, which angered the female again. When she realized that the mother was heading in her direction, the lioness made the only right decision to get away. We've talked about lions. That means it's time to talk about those whom the king of the beasts are constantly compared. Yes, of course, I'm talking about tigers. This story about the tigress started with the cat going out to hunt. The principle that she's away from her family to raise her cubs and all that sort of thing didn't work here. No, tigers in principle prefer to hunt alone, whether being pregnant or under normal circumstances. They've spent years honing their attack skills. So if they manage to get to a target, the victim would be more likely dead. However, the key word in this case will be if. There are times when a tiger, despite its silence and luxurious camouflage, is still spotted, as in this case. As a result, the cat is left without prey and is forced to return home without tasty food. But who knows? Maybe the tigress needed to fail that day. After all, it was the only way that she managed to come home in time to notice that a rather large bear was walking not far from her cubs. This time, the threat blew over. However, since the predator had already smelled the prey, it was likely to return. Not today, not tomorrow, but it would come and take its own. Thanks to this information, the tigress waited until the tiger moved away to a safe distance, ran into the house to the cubs, grabbed them by their soft and tender skin, and dragged them to a new shelter. Okay, this story took place not in the wild anymore, but in a very ordinary sanctuary. A daddy elephant and his cub were walking along the pool when suddenly the youngest slipped. The mother, who was standing nearby, immediately noticed it and rushed to help. The poor, worried parents did not know what to do because the cub could not swim yet. In panic, they ran from side to side for about 5 seconds. Following that, they came to their senses and went to the entrance of the pool. They got into the water and together they pulled out their favorite elephant. By the way, such behavior is not all that can surprise these creatures. Contrary to popular belief, elephants have only 2 kneecaps and they can't jump. They're also not afraid of mice and other small creatures as we're used to being shown in films and cartoons. Speaking of small animals, when a creature is as big as an elephant, the problem of parasites becomes the most urgent. It's incredibly easy for hardly noticeable creatures to get hooked up to an elephant and start existing at its expense. The giant, in theory, will simply not notice it. However, clever elephants have found a solution to the problem here too. To avoid contact with parasites, they're often doused with liquid mud. The dried mud crust serves as a good defense against insects and promotes healing of skin wounds. Do you remember that we've already seen a video of a tigress saving her cubs from a bear? Well, wolves turn out to be no slouch either. They're not ready to say goodbye to their cubs, even when faced with such a great and did the cubs and remained unharmed. I think that after such a fight, the predator will never come to them again. I want to say it. The thing is that I know another story with an animal whose kindness and affection are simply not enough. When it comes to the animal world, mothers quite often sacrifice their future reproductive success in order to increase the survival rate of their offspring. Scientists found out this fact quite a long time ago, but for some reason they did not pay attention to it. Their main target of their study has always been cubs. As it turns out, parents during the rearing period can be no less interesting, especially when it comes to orcas. An international team of researchers from the UK and the US studied a group of orcas to find out how much caring for grown cubs affects a mother's reproductive success. These animals have been under the care of the American Whale Research Center since 1976. Over the years, scientists have kept detailed pedigrees for each of them that allowed them to trace how the birth of a son or daughter influenced the mother's future reproductive success. It turned out that when an orca gives birth to a male, in most cases, she refuses to give up further offspring and gives all of herself to proper and sensitive upbringing. And it's not limited to care at a young age. It's believed that the mother orca is engaged in the calf and in its conscious age. Such behavior can be explained neither by prolonged nursing of the calf nor by the composition of the group. In both small and large families, everyone behaved in the same way. It's likely that the evolutionary advantage gained by mothers sacrificing their future for their sons outweighed the potential benefit of additional breeding seasons. On the one hand, such a feature is great, something unusual and curious about our world's oceans. But on the other hand, it also raises concerns about the breeding rate of killer whales and their population as a whole. 2 playful dogs spotted a baby deer in front of a fence and started circling around it. Most likely, as the dogs were pets, they just wanted to play with a new animal and have a good time. However, the mother deer who was standing nearby was from a wild family and did not approve of such games. As soon as her patience ran out, she immediately pounced on these dogs and chased them out of sight. This is probably the first time I've ever not supported a mother's behavior. Although, on the other hand, she did it purely for the safety of her offspring. What do you think of this case? Did the doe do the right thing? Write in the comments. The following video was made by an American girl named Erin. The girl was not going on a wildlife excursion. She just went out into the yard of her country house and accidentally filmed something very interesting. A rather large and strong lynx lay right in front of her. The cat, according to Erin, was not here by chance. There was a raccoon den not far from her house, and this lynx most likely came to eat her cubs. Luckily, the mother sensed something wrong in time and was able to protect her offspring. She came closer, made a small circle, and forced the cat to attack. And that was just what was needed. The cat's attack allowed the raccoon to launch a powerful counterattack and fight back. With such an onslaught, the predator could not do anything and she could only run away. In the understanding of many, the swan is a beautiful, snow-white bird that knows absolutely nothing about fighting. All it likes to do is swim in a body of water or fly gracefully against the blue sky. That's generally true, but I'd argue about the fights. It turns out that swans are also ready to do anything to protect their offspring. In this video, a man got too close to the bird and made it feel uncomfortable. The mental link established between the female and the male immediately signaled to the older one, and the protector of the family went to do his duty. Fortunately, Fortunately, it didn't come to a battle between the swan and the human. However, this aggressive and confident attitude was enough to make everyone around worry. I wonder how good swans are at fighting. If anyone happens to know, post in the comments. Well, while you're writing, I'll show you what happens when you look askew at a bear cub. In this story, which is even more amazing, another equally large bear, also a male, looked cross-eyed. However, our heroine was not embarrassed by it. She rushed towards him as if he had the world's last piece of food in his teeth. She stood on her hind legs, she almost bit him, she pushed him, and noticing that he bowed his head, realized that his opponent had surrendered. Only after this gesture was the female able to cool her own ardor and return to her cubs. However, it's not always that the older protect the younger. In nature, it happens that cubs are ready to give their lives for their mother. For example, this brave and courageous rhino noticed that something was being done to his mom. In his eyes, it looked like a potential danger to her health. At the same time, people realized that this way they were treating her legs and making her better. Luckily for them, the rhino nearby was still too small, and it could not do any damage purely physically. Despite this, the young protector managed to accelerate toward the man a few times. I think Mom can be at ease. She's raised a right and kind creature. And this situation is a bit unclear to me. If we believe the comments of the author of the video, the female Doberman chases away the cubs from their father, and she does it so harshly and sharply as if it were not the father of the family but some stranger from outside, aiming to steal one or two cubs and hide with them forever. I wonder what was the reasoning behind this behavior of the female. And now, I suggest that you take a look at life in the wild through the eyes of a small, I would say even tiny, creature. The main character of the story is a kangaroo jumper, a rodent from North America. As a rule, he weighs up to 6 ounces. Of course, such a weightless individual is unlikely to be able to give battle to a more or less good predator like the snake. These jumpers don't need it. They prefer to fight a tactical battle, the essence of which is to avoid contact. A kangaroo jumper made a new house where he was happy to place his deer and beloved cub, and one would probably gotten away with it if the older rodent hadn't smelled a rat. A snake had come out to hunt just outside their home. It was big enough, dangerous enough, and hungry enough. If it sees those animals, it won't let them get away. No den would save them either. Realizing all this, the kangaroo jumper took his cub out of the hole and jumped away to a new safe place. Thanks to his amazing hearing, he heard the snake even before it came into view, and he was able to save both his soul and the cubs. As soon as the threat was over, the animals jumped back into the hole, realizing that in all probability the snake would not return. It's not a rarity in nature when cubs are raised not by their mother and father, but by animals of another species. How's it possible? I'll tell you now. Labrador Birdie. Cats and dogs are something like black and white, Batman and Joker, good and bad. At least this is what many people think and are afraid of getting cats when there's a dog at home. But I'm in a hurry to mention that it's not the case. In reality, dogs and cats get on well with each other, and moreover, the adults can adopt them, take the youngest under their wing, and become a full-fledged mother or father. For example, in this story that happened in Great Britain, the nurse, named Rachel, brought 7 orphaned kittens. She found them on the roadside, and her kind heart didn't allow it to pass by. The girl was thinking about what to do with them and was worried that her favorite Labrador, Birdie, wouldn't accept them, would attack them, and so on. However, the way the dog reacted to this made Rachel cry, in the best sense of the word. The dog treated the kittens with highest respect and compassion. Relying on the nurse's words, the dog took them almost at once, started to warm them up, and look after them. As a result, the Labrador played with the kittens almost continuously for more than 8 weeks, slept with them, and followed them to prevent the small creatures from climbing somewhere or hurting themselves. Either the dog felt he was a father or just decided to help its hostess that also fed them with a bottle and taught them how to use the cat litter box. If you hope that at the end of the day the woman decided to keep the kittens, you're wrong. It was too much for a nurse to have such a number of pets, especially if you take into account the fact that she often has to work a night shift. That's why she just brought up the kittens and then brought them to one of the main shelters of her town, which helped to find a good and decent family for each kitten shortly after that. You know, when I look at the next nice story with animals, it seems to me that cats are unique creatures that can form a family among any animal. Let them be dogs and even capybaras. Amid the pandemics, a stray red cat accidentally found its way to the Malaysian National Zoo of Negara and started to live with capybaras. It's curious that workers noticed this, not at once. However, when they paid attention to that, it was already too late to separate them. The cat, Owen, is currently a full-fledged member of their family. You know, this story has a lot of advantages. Firstly, the stray cat found a shelter. Secondly, the park found new visitors, and each of them wished to personally take a look at this unusual family. Capybaras and the cat. Nature is capable of anything. By the way, do you want a couple fun facts about this rodent? Secondly, these are creatures that never live alone. Specialists consider that this is exactly the factor why they sheltered the kitten so easily. Let the cat alone, they would even make a feathered creature to their family member. After all, capybaras are not against the birds sitting on them, though it's quite possible that they're simply sly and clever creatures. If you didn't know, insects often hide in their fur, whereas birds feed on them with pleasure. Thus, the former become cleaner, whereas the latter, in their turn, satisfy themselves. So it's a win-win situation. In fact, capybaras don't worry about anything. They're not especially angry about that. All they need is a friend at hand and 6 to 8 pounds of fresh grass or hay on a daily basis. At some point, I started to think that stories will be monotonous. The stronger animals will look after the smaller and weaker. Not at all. The next story simply shocked me. The very common hen dared take playful and unruly puppies into its care. Still, it's said not in vain that there are no someone else's cubs. Maternal instincts are so strong that they make even a hen to care for alien offspring. This case took place on a Brazilian farm. We don't know the story of how the puppies found themselves under the hen's control. That's why I suggest that you write your versions in the comments. What's more, I find it interesting whether the puppies stay close to the hen and guard her after growing up several times bigger than their mother. Or will they go away to live separately? To get acquainted with the next touching story, we have to move to England with a girl named Becky Popham who bought 3 lambs from one of the farmers. They remained orphans after the mother's death for health reasons. At that moment, the lambs were only 4 weeks old. The farmer had neither strength nor time to take care of them. That's why their fortune was under threat. It was only the kind heart of Becky that saved them from a tragic future. They moved to a new house and quickly got acquainted with Heidi. No, this was not Becky's daughter and not even her friend, but a kind and loyal pony, living with Becky for 10 years. When the owner brought the lambs, she settled them in the neighboring stall with the pony. Later on, the woman noticed that the horse cared for the lambs and decided to transfer them to its stall. This was a little risky action. You never know how the lambs could react to an adult horse and backwards. However, everything worked out. These 4 not only got along, but turned into a real family. Pony showed itself as a careful mother, whereas they as obedient and nice cubs. Upon the expiration of several weeks, the horse started to produce milk. According to what the veterinarian said, it was a natural reaction of its body to the presence of the cubs. However, people were mostly surprised by the fact that the horse and the lambs found common ground. These cases are almost impossible in nature. White-tailed eagle. White-tailed eagles are proud feathered creatures. Those are constant lovers we're going to talk about. These are creatures that choose a partner and always stay true to him or her until their dying day. They build a nest somewhere high where nobody will find them. They regularly trim their home, adding new, fresh sticks, and sealing it with moss. The female clutches, whereas the male hunts, finds food, and brings it to his loved one. This is how the couple of Milda and Ramus lived until something incredible took place in their life. One terrible day, intruders attacked their nest. Those were another couple that seemingly planned to settle in someone else's nest. They would easily throw eggs from the height and wouldn't worry about a thing. However, the white-tailed eagles didn't allow them to do that. The mother continued sitting on the brood and keeping away the enemies, whereas the father of the family, Ramus, did everything to protect Milda from the unexpected guests. At some point, they managed to chase away the latter, and Ramus followed them. Finally, happiness and quietness seemed to be back, but that's not the case. It's too early to triumph. The time passed, but Ramus didn't return. He did neither in the evening of that day, nor the next morning, nor even several days later. However, that cannot be said for the intruders. Another female, distressed by the misfortune, also ran away, whereas the male did obviously have other plans. He flew around the nest, irritated Milda, bothering her and making her shuffle on eggs. The problem lay in the fact that the kind and courageous Ramus used to bring food, but then he was not there, as well as the subsistence. The female was hungry but continued sitting. However, at a certain point, she ran out of patience, failed, and went hunting. She was absent for several hours, but all scientists keeping a close eye on this story were surprised by what happened next. The intruder male approached the nest and decided not to do harm to the chicks, as if he had been conscious of his guilt and didn't allow himself to damage the clutch. Milda started to disappear more frequently, whereas the male tried to expiate his guilt. He brought sticks or branches to the nest, secured the roost, and when the female went hunting, he sat on the eggs and hatched them when the mother was out. Our next story happened to an ordinary worker of a flower shop in Australia. One day, a man encountered a stray dog outdoors and couldn't allow himself to pass by. He took it home, gave it food and drink, and started to look after it as his own child. As a result, they became best friends. Several years passed and the story repeated. However, this time a worker of the flower shop encountered not a dog but 8 piglets. I'm sure it would be an excess for the majority, 8 animals at once, and what's more, piglets that are not so easy to look after. Many people would have passed by and refused this idea. Many, but not him. This man with a capital letter took them to his farm, whereas his loyal dog, remembering the way the man had treated her, decided to thank him and help raise the piglets. Treasure, this is the name of the dog, arose its maternal instinct and started to care for them as sensitively and scrupulously as if they'd been her own pups. Soon after that, her body even started to produce milk, which enabled her to feed the piglets. That became even happier. Here's another, not less touching moment that happened to a lioness. Lions are surprising and incredibly strong animals. Anyone would envy their socialization level and the ability to work in a team. Apart from their hunting features, they're also famous for paying special attention to their cubs. Before labor, a female isolates herself from the family to avoid disturbance and gives birth to her nice cub. She feeds it, and when the animal becomes older, she goes hunting with it and shows the way one should fight as exemplified by an easy prey. They say the lionesses strike almost a lethal blow to the enemy and let her cub finish it off. This way, a female learns practically how to hunt. However, this story is not about the relationship between a lioness and her own cub. It's a small leopard that became its small one. This couple was accidentally noticed by tourists of the sanctuary in Tanzania and took several pictures. This phenomenon is especially unique and doesn't look like those in the previous stories, at least because it's happening in the wild, and where everybody is ready for a trick and fights to the death. Concerning someone else's cub, the lionesses take them as their enemies and get rid of them, even despite the difference in age and power. However, this case kept the leopard alive. Fate did it a favor and got him in touch with a caring mother ready to look after even someone else's cub. According to the park workers that track all the inhabitants moving around the park with the aid of GPS, the lioness found the small leopard about half a mile away from its own den. As experts in lions note, it's the high level of maternal hormones that played the role. She was driven by the desire to take care of a cub. After all, the lionesses are wonderful defenders. This is exactly why she didn't attack, but took it under her wing. We don't know yet how long the lioness will be caring for the cub. In addition, a year or a year and a half later, the small leopard will become more independent and is most likely to behave as others of its species do. A couple of griffin vultures. In the Amsterdam Zoo, where a huge number of different creatures live, you can encounter a couple of vultures, in other words gyps, that have been staying there for a long time. Gyps is a genus of big predatory birds from the family of Accipitridae, widely spread in the warm climate of the Eastern Hemisphere. Anyway, 2 vultures live there. Both are males. Females haven't been brought there. Despite that, there's a chick's egg left on the territory of the park. First, they took it to the incubator, but very soon one of the workers came up with an idea. What if we give this egg to the real feathered creatures of the same species? They hesitated, of course. By any measure, those are two males. They were not used to sitting on eggs. Anyway, the workers risked, and their risk was fully justified. Weirdly, the couple of vultures turned out to be a very kind and careful family that guarded this egg like the apple of their eye. Soon after that, a chick came into the world. The vultures didn't abandon it. They took turns in feeding the chick, regurgitating it half-digested as it's appropriate for exemplary vulture fathers. Do you remember a story of how a dog took kittens under her wing? Thus, cats prove that they're also capable of such kind and positive actions. The puppy Charlie, this is how it's called, it was discovered outdoors and immediately brought to the shelter. The poor dog needed emergency assistance. The story seems to be finished. A veterinarian took care of the puppy, but it's not the case. His life was still under threat. At that moment, it was only a couple of weeks old, but street life led it to get several infections that were hardly possible to cure. The veterinarians did everything to save Charlie. It seemed to be about to recover, but it was very difficult to find that key to success, when suddenly one of the kind girls dared take the puppy home. As you understand, she was not out of pocket. She fed the puppy from a bottle and made every effort to help, and finally succeeded in doing so. Her kind heart broke down, and the heroine adopted a mother cat with 6 newborn kittens. For the sake of the experiment, she decided to get them in touch with her puppy. It's a wonder she managed to do so. From the very beginning, the cat started to lick the puppy as its own cub and took him under her wing. The four-legged recovered and continued to have a good time in the company of its new full-fledged family. Adult animals can be dangerous for humans. Did you know that cubs of some animals are life-threatening? Now I'll tell you about them. Look at this baby. It has spines all over its body and it's bloated. Those of you in the know have already figured it out. It's a pufferfish. More specifically, it's a baby pufferfish. In fact, pufferfish is not a particular species, but a whole family of fish that are common around the globe. Many people think that pufferfish can only be found in the seas and oceans, but this is not true. Not all pufferfish like seawater. Some species live in freshwater and are found from South America and Africa to Southeast Asia. It's because of Southeast Asia that pufferfish have gained their popularity, as they're caught in local waters and then shipped to Japan, where they're used to make a signature dish called fugu. Improperly cooked dish can kill a person because pufferfish are toxic, and this also applies to their babies. These fish contain tetrodotoxin, which is the most powerful natural nerve agent poison. When it enters the digestive tract, it causes pain, convulsions, and is usually fatal. So don't underestimate even small pufferfish. They too can lead to poisoning. Now, let's take a look at this turtle. This baby turtle looks very dangerous, all covered with some kind of spikes, and even its claws look powerful. But a baby turtle doesn't have to look like this to be dangerous. It's enough for it to have quite ordinary shell, but at the same time, monstrously powerful jaws, like the alligator snapping turtle. It was named so for a reason. Firstly, it has ridges on its shell that resemble the rough and rigid skin of an alligator. And secondly, in terms of bite force, it may well compete with the alligator. It bites some objects in half in an instant without even making an effort. The size of a turtle also plays a big role. These reptiles can grow up to 5 feet in length and weigh 132 pounds. And according to some reports, some turtles of this species can weigh up to 400 pounds. The alligator snapping turtle cannot be called quite reckless. When it's picked up, it usually doesn't bite, but only opens its terrifying mouth wide and spews a stream of liquid. However, you should not test the patience of the turtle because when irritated, it can bite very hard and painfully. Even the babies of the species have powerful jaws. They may well cause injury if they're angered, so it's better to stay away from them. Northern fulmar. That's the name of our next guest, a bird from the Procellaridae family. Northern fulmars are seabirds that nest on rocks and live in the North Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, in the Arctic Ocean, and the waters of Antarctica. Female northern fulmars lay one egg at a time, incubate them for a couple of months, after which the chick hatches. In the very first days of its life, it's quite harmless, like many other baby animals, but it learns very quickly how to stand up for itself. All northern fulmars, including chicks, do not like excessive excessive attention and have a negative attitude towards people. If you approach a northern fulmar, it'll get angry and vomit on the offender with its gastric juice. The northern fulmar can literally spit it at the enemy, and it does it at a hefty distance. Why is it dangerous? Well, for example, a person may not know about such a superpower of chicks and try to get close to them. When the chick attacks them with its juice, the person may get scared, jump back sharply, stumble, and fall off a high cliff. In such a scenario, the northern fulmar chick could very well be described as deadly to a human, but I'm exaggerating, of course. If a person climbs a cliff to the birds, they must know exactly what kind of birds they are, so tourists and scientists are certainly prepared for such stomach gifts of northern fulmars. Being spit on by gastric juice is unpleasant, but it's still bearable. It's worse when they spit venom at you. And of course, venomous snakes do it. These are some of the most dangerous creatures on the planet in general, and their babies are no exception. Yes, baby snakes look creepy enough, but still not as creepy as their parents. After all, size matters, and it's much creepier to come across a huge cobra than its tiny snakelet. But not many people are aware of the fact that baby snakes have venom from day one. Scientists say it's just as potent as that of their parents. Some believe that baby snakes are even more dangerous than their parents. The explanation is that adult snakes do not spit venom left and right. They know what venom is, understand that they need it in order to get food, and use it only during the hunt and self-defense, in small doses to save supplies at that. Baby snakes have not yet learned this, so for one attack, they can give the offender a full dose of venom. This sounds logical, but scientists believe that this is a myth. In fact, baby snakes learn to control venom from a very early age, and like adult creeping creatures, do not spit venom at everything and do not spend the entire supply in one bite. Nevertheless, don't forget that their venom is also extremely powerful and dangerous, so even baby snakes are worth staying away from. Golden poison frog. The situation with these creatures is about the same as with venomous snakes. However, it's much more difficult to distinguish the baby from the adult. If, in the case of snakes, everything is visually clear at once, then here there may be difficulties, because even adult golden poison frogs are only a couple of centimeters long. But this doesn't prevent them from posing a great threat to humans, as well as to a huge number of animals, because they are incredibly poisonous. These are some of the most poisonous frogs and vertebrates of the planet in general. The poison of the golden poison frog, as well as all poison dart frogs, the family they belong to, is right on the skin of the animal. Therefore, the golden poison frog and other poison dart frogs do not even need to bite. It's enough for a person to take a frog in their hands and it'll poison them through their skin. Poison is insanely powerful, so touching it may well be fatal. Poison dart frogs get their poison through food, eating venomous ants, mites, and various insects. When the baby of the golden poison frog begins to keep such a diet, it becomes no less dangerous than its parents. It happens quickly enough. After a couple of weeks, the tadpoles start leading a terrestrial way of life and eating venomous critters. By the way, the color of the frog directly depends on the diet. The bright colors of poison dart frogs are a direct consequence of their diet, and if you make them keep to another diet, they'll become black. Cane toad. Here is a distant relative of the brightly colored frogs. They live, by the way, in the same habitat in South and Central America. Also, these toads can be found in Australia. Unlike the tiny golden poison frogs and other poison dart frogs, the cane toad is very large. The largest individual on record weighed over 5.5 pounds. They're obviously different in terms of size, but there's a similarity between them. These toads are also toxic, and they don't need to feed on something to be toxic. They have poison almost always and from a very young age. That's the danger of baby cane toads. First of all, they're dangerous for animals. The cane toad lays eggs in the water where they turn into tadpoles. A female can lay up to 25,000 eggs at a time. You can imagine what the concentration of tadpoles in the water can be, especially in a small body of water. Inattentive animals can drink water from a pond with the tadpoles and then they're done. Even a single tadpole is poisonous enough to finish off any creature. Now imagine that an animal suffering from thirst accidentally swallowed several dozen tadpoles at once. Sometimes even crocodiles fall victim to their thirst. Australian dingoes are also among the victims. For some reason, baby cane toads are dangerous mainly for the Australian fauna. In America, the number of such cases is less. In this regard, the Department of Environment and Conservation of Western Australia, in cooperation with the University of Sydney, even created special baits to teach local Australian animals not to eat these toads and their tadpoles. Honey badger. While animals in Australia are afraid of poisonous toads, animals in Africa and Asia are afraid of these animals. The honey badger is one of the most famous creatures in the world. It gained its popularity due to its incredible features and character. Honey badgers are often called the most fearless animals on the planet, and it's hard to argue with this. The badger's small, it weighs about 22 pounds, and it's only about 20 inches long, but this doesn't prevent it from rushing at lions, fighting with several leopards at once, killing venomous snakes and pythons, snacking on tarantulas and scorpions, and simply terrorize everyone around. Incredibly tough skin, sharp fangs and claws, agility, and immunity to many venoms make the honey badger practically unkillable. And what about their cubs? They're cute and harmless in the first few days of life, but they grow up very quickly and become small copies of their parents. Literally, from an early age, they're fearless and powerful. These young badgers mark the territory around them, chase animals, and have an unbridled appetite. A young honey badger will eat anyone and anything: mammals, birds, reptiles, insects, larvae, plants, fruit, roots, and so on. From a very young age, the honey badger needs to confirm and defend the title of the most fearless animal on the planet, and it does it well. And now I'll show you some incredible battles between pets and predators. Let's start with the footage taken by the surveillance camera. There was a battle between a cat and a coyote on the front porch. This occurred at a time when coyotes have overrun many Texas suburbs. Cat is clearly inferior to the wild predator in size, but it has no intention of giving up. It realizes that engaging in direct combat is not an option, so it tries to outsmart the coyote and hides. The coyote struggles to get it, and when it retreats itself, the cat comes out and tries to scare the coyote, but it's no use. Eventually, the coyote began to push harder and harder, and it seemed as if it was about to massacre the cat. That's right, it could happen at any moment. Then the pet tried to hide higher up and climbed up the beam under the canopy. Coyotes can't climb, so the cat's safe there. But for how long? After all, there's nothing to stand on. The cat can only hold on and rely on the strength of its paws and sharp claws. Fortunately, the furball has enough strength. It lasted about a minute and then collapsed without strength. By then, the coyote was already gone. Coyotes are dangerous animals, but sometimes cats themselves give them a hard time. For example, this coyote snuck into a residential neighborhood, and the cat decided not to wait for the predator to hurt someone. It ran out at it abruptly and chased the dangerous beast away. Next, we have another dangerous member of the Canidae family, the cunning fox. It sneaked into the territory of the house where the cat was peacefully walking around. Of course, at the sight of the fox, it immediately went into fighting mode, arched its back to look bigger, and began to watch the enemy closely. This cat understands that it'll be difficult to fight the fox, so it decided to defeat it by cunning. As soon as the predator tries to attack, the cat itself lunges and scares the opponent. The latter has to retreat and start all over again. But the fox isn't stupid. It understands that the cat is just bluffing, so it doesn't stop and doesn't see the cat as a particular threat. The cat understands this too, so at the end, it decides to run away. It manages to get away from the fox, or rather from two foxes at once. As it turns out, there was a second predator nearby the whole time. Cats confront foxes and coyotes, and dogs confront lions. Sounds crazy, but see it for yourself. A dog came to the place where a lioness and a lion were resting. The big cats woke up and decided to chase the intruder away, but the dog started barking and attacking the predators. They jumped up from surprise. The dog fearlessly started to attack the lioness and the lion. After a short pause, it attacked the animals again. This time it hit the lion particularly hard, which even had to back away from such a defiant opponent. The dog eventually left, and the lion still didn't understand what just happened and how it was even possible. And here's a more fair confrontation: a dog against a lioness. First, the lioness caught up with the dog and knocked it down, but didn't finish it off. The dog recovered a little and decided to take its revenge. It started to attack the lioness, and the lioness had to retreat under such an onslaught. The dog even tried to bite the lioness, but was hit by the lioness's paw. That's it. The dog took revenge on the lioness, and even the second lioness came up, so now it's definitely necessary to leave. And here's a more brazen dog. It's biting the tiger. The dog got a good grip on the spotted cat and only let it go after it hit it with its paws. Then the lion got it, and the dog took hold of the tiger again. The lion took advantage of that and pawed the tiger from behind. What an unusual situation. But really, it's not that simple. This dog is the tiger's adoptive parent that raised it. The tiger perceives it as its mother, so there's no way it would hurt the dog. And this careless dog walked by the tiger, pissed it off, and it dealt with the dog in just a couple of seconds. Okay, let's not talk about sad things. Let's take a look at the next interesting showdown. Here, a northern goshawk swoops down on a chicken and grabs it. The feathers are literally flying in all directions and the chicken's about to die. But the rooster comes to the rescue and tries to distract the goshawk. But the bird of prey is too strong. The chicken and the rooster cannot cope with it. Fortunately for them, a goat comes to the rescue. It helped chase away the cheeky goshawk, and it soon flew away. The goat and the rooster did a great job, but don't worry about the chicken. It survived and suffered only minor injuries. It might seem that in the last battle, it was the goat that did everything right, and without it, the birds would have been killed. I don't know. The following clip shows that domestic birds can deal with a predator themselves. A chicken and a rooster are walking in a small pen. Suddenly, a hawk arrives. It takes advantage of the moment and attacks the chicken while the rooster is not around. But the rooster hears everything. It rushes in, defends the chicken, and quickly deals with the hawk. The hawk barely survived the onslaught and flew out of the territory in a hurry. Dogs are known for their incredible hearing. These creatures can hear the slightest rustle and react to it. That makes this video all the more amazing. A dog is sleeping and a leopard sneaks up on it. It's just incredible how quietly and carefully the big cat did it. It cautiously walked up to the dog on soft paws and stood right beside it. The dog didn't hear it and couldn't smell it. The leopard stood near the dog for a full 3 minutes. It examined its prey for a long time, and as soon as the dog woke up, it instantly attacked it. The leopard grabbed the dog very tightly and wasn't going to let it go. Soon the animals fell down, and the owner of the dog ran out because of the noise. As he said, the dog survived, even though it was injured. I suggest that the dog be rehabilitated. Let this creature avenge its congener. This limping dog waddles straight to the hikers from somewhere, then decides to lie down on the road and rest. Suddenly, a leopard flies out of the bushes at it, but the dog's not confused. It reacted quickly and frightened the leopard with a loud bark. The big cat even spread its paws in bewilderment. The dog told it what it thought of it, and the leopard didn't want to attack at all. In the end, I even felt sorry for the leopard. In this footage, we see a horse and a foal. The ungulates are standing somewhere in a field minding their own business, not even knowing that they're already being hunted. Not far away is the Persian leopard, the largest leopard subspecies from West Asia. It has its eye on the foal, and so it takes advantage of the moment and tries to attack the baby. It knocks the foal down, but the horse immediately covers it with itself and kicks the big cat. The leopard had to run away to avoid being hit a second time. In addition, there was another horse nearby, so it wasn't safe to stay there. Horses in general are much braver and more dangerous than many might think. They can fight not only a leopard, but also an alligator. See for yourself. We see several horses standing near the alligator. The reptile just lies there and is not going to attack anyone, but one of the horses decides to chase the dangerous guest away. The black horse approaches the alligator and tries to stomp on it. The first attack is unsuccessful, but on the second time, the horse hits the alligator with its hooves, hitting it right on its head. The gator didn't have time to defend itself properly, though it tried to bite the horse. Soon the reptile crawled away from such a violent horse. Horses what? Come on, alligators are even afraid of cats. And not big ones like jaguars, but regular pets. Look at this daredevil. This alligator just wanted to eat meat, but the little cheeky predator got in its way. At first, the cat let the alligator eat some, but then it seemed to it that the reptile had eaten too much meat already. The cat wants some too. So it began fearlessly hitting the alligator with its paw and chasing it away. Surprisingly, it worked, and the alligator decided to hide in the water. Here's a similar situation, only there's no meat. The alligator simply crawled out onto dry land where the cat was waiting for it. The furball didn't like the fact that some intruder was claiming its land, and it fearlessly started chasing it back into the water. The cat wasn't going to retreat and was ready to fight, but the alligator decided not to get involved and simply walked away into the water. Suddenly, another alligator appeared, but the cat chased it away as well, pawing it. House cats are really fearless. Alligators aren't the limit, for they can fight even a bear. In this footage, a curious bear approaches the steps where the cat was sitting. Sensing the stranger, the cat barked at it, scaring the bear off. It tried to examine the cat better, but the furball swung its paw sharply and almost hit the bear. Of course, it immediately got away from such a fluffy threat. And here's a more direct confrontation. A bear had snuck into the cat's territory, and the pet decided to chase it away. When the bear ran toward the cat and hid behind a tree, the cat went on the attack and chased the poor fellow up a tree. The bear had to climb high to avoid being hit by the cat. The bear got down from the tree and the video ended. It's unknown how the confrontation ended, so I suggest you share your thoughts in the comments. And finally, let's look at birds again. We see a chicken and its family. They're quietly living their lives when suddenly a crow flies in. Although crows are scavengers, on occasion they hunt and claim chicks of various birds. The mother chicken could not allow the crow to harm its babies, so it started a fight. Although the chicken is considered a weaker and sillier bird than the crow, the bird did just fine. The chicken exhausted the crow, moved the fight to the ground, and began to peck its opponent. Periodically, the crow got up, flew to the fence, and tried to attack again, but was repulsed every time. As a result, it completely lost the battle and did not get the desired chicks. In the end, it calmed down and even stayed in the pen with the chicken. Perhaps they even became friends. And let's finish the episode with birds. Keep watching and you'll find out what bird even lions are afraid of. Crowned eagle. Our first guest, the crowned eagle, lives in dense forests, including the heart of the African jungle, as well as on forested slopes. It's found up to 10,000 feet above sea level and sometimes chooses savannas and eucalyptus plantations for its habitat. This bird can make nests in many habitats, even in suburban areas, if there's plenty of food and flora necessary for hunting, building, and improving its nests. But why is it not afraid of anyone in that case? Why is it not afraid of people, for example, if we're talking about the suburbs, or dangerous predators like lions? The thing is that more than 15 pounds of muscle and wingspan of about 6.5 feet give the crowned eagle an incredible confidence in itself and its actions. Okay, to be honest, it's not all that rosy and unequivocal. It can't single-handedly defeat predatory wildcats or something like them. The eagle itself predominantly hunts small animals, monkeys, meerkats, and various birds. And now you have the question, why is it that when this bird is seen in the sky by lions, they prefer not to hunt and wait it out? It's all about the crowned eagle's teamwork. If a bird sees some sweet target, it calls its congeners for help, and already together they can easily deal with almost any problem, even with a lion, a leopard, or other dangerous hunters. Southern cassowary. The next bird I'm going to talk about is in Australia. Indeed, where, if not there, can the most dangerous bird of our time live? It's important to note right away, the southern cassowary is considered a bird mostly formally. In fact, it cannot fly. It would be a little strange if a 180-pound, 5-foot giant could also hover in the air, don't you think? Although maybe that's what they do and people just haven't seen it yet. The southern cassowary is a rather secretive creature that doesn't like to tell anyone about its leisure time and interests. It prefers to live alone and avoid contact with others. In some languages, the creature is known as the casque cassowary. This beautiful bird was named so because of something like a casque on its head. Scientists still don't fully understand what it is and why this bird needs it, but they have made a couple or 3 interesting assumptions. For example, some believe that the cassowary needs the casque to pick up low-frequency sounds generated by other members of the species. In short, they believe that the casque is a kind of antenna for communicating with congeners. There's also an opinion that the casque on the head of the cassowary performs a literal role, being an additional protection when attacking or defending. It may also help in the choosing of females. Write in the comments, which version do you like the most? Or share your own version for the reason of the existence of this casque. In the meantime, I'll move on to the danger the bird poses. It's not difficult to guess that, because of such a large size, the southern cassowary should have giant legs. With their help, it not only runs superbly, reaching speeds of 30 miles per hour, but can also kick anyone around it. Usually, a fight against a cassowary ends after 1 kick and the bird wins by knockout. The cassowary claws, reaching 4 to 5 inches in length, help in this. Common ostrich. Here's another equally dangerous bird that can't fly. At first glance, it may seem that the inability to fly is bad luck and deprivation on the part of nature, but it's not so. It's for this reason that the ostrich was once forced to train and develop its legs. All this led to the fact that the ostrich became a real monster, up to 8.8 feet tall, weighing more than 330 pounds, from which there is no escape. No other bird alive today can boast of such impressive size. What else is amazing about the ostrich is its incredibly keen eyesight. Having such eyesight, it's very difficult for the ostrich to miss the impending danger, which is what different herbivores take advantage of. They settle next to the ostriches and think they're safe that way. The giant bird's not against it. It believes that there's nothing wrong with it. On the contrary, if suddenly a predator sneaks up and manages to attack, the herbivores will be a living shield for the ostrich and it'll have time to escape. Not every aggressor will be able to run after an ostrich at a speed of more than 43 miles per hour, which means it'll be quite easy to get away from the attack. Although maybe it's running away from predators for nothing at all. In my opinion, an ostrich can hunt anything. Have you ever seen its huge and strong claws? With the help of such a weapon, the bird can cause serious injuries or even kill a young lion. Perhaps if it had not had a toothless beak, it'd be happy to feed on large animals. In the meantime, it has to eat only grains, seeds, fruits, and lizards. Pitahui. Pitahui are the following feathered creatures that I'm going to talk about. We've long been accustomed to the fact that in the wild there are dangerous and venomous snakes, venomous spiders, and so on. You know what I mean, right? It turns out that along with them, there are also poisonous birds. Just those very Pitahui. By the way, do you know how people found out that these birds were endowed with a toxin? In 1989, a scientist was observing Pitahui and helped it out of the trap in the process. It scratched him in gratitude. The man put his lips to the wound and felt them almost instantly numb. The concentration of the poison wasn't enough to cause serious harm to the man, which meant that the scientist was able to convey this information to the world. As it turned out later, he was very lucky because the Pitahui toxin is very similar in its composition to the poison of dart frogs, considered one of the most poisonous creatures on the planet. Like dart frogs, these birds feed on poisonous bugs. But why do birds need poison in the first place? Well, it's probably a special defense mechanism against predators, natural enemies, and, of course, humans. The barred owl is one of the most common and numerous owls in North America. The total population is estimated at 600,000 individuals. There's also the so-called spotted owl, but the barred owl is successfully displacing it from its territory. This is due to its aggressive temperament and large size. But the most interesting thing, in my opinion, is the way these birds communicate. For example, they make a series of extraordinary loud noises during the mating season. It resembles unstrained and insane laughter. In addition to laughter, barrel owls also like to communicate with their congeners in cute and unusual phrases. They also make sounds reminiscent of hooting with a rising intonation or cat cries. Feline cries are usually heard when mating or hunting large prey. Visual signals play an important role in communication between birds. They can express their emotions with the help of head turns, different body positions, and wings. Emu. Emus are massive birds with a clumsy appearance that cannot fly. And to be honest, they don't walk properly either. They shake and bounce all the way around. In addition, not only do they not benefit any other people, but they've also harmed them not once in their long history. In 1932, almost all of Western Australia was attacked by emus. They invaded literally every farmer's field and prevented them from farming. It's said that over 20,000 individuals were involved in the raid. The authorities were so desperate to fight these birds that they even decided to attack them with real weapons. Of course, this didn't turn out well because the emus simply broke into small groups and this method was no longer effective. But if people don't use weapons, how can we defeat these impudent birds? After all, if one corners them, they become real monsters, fighting until their last breath. An emu starts kicking with its big three-toed feet, and there's nothing a human can do about it. The attacks are too powerful to resist. Thus, catching up with them or running away from them is also unrealistic for people. These sprinters can reach speeds of up to 31 miles per hour. Although I would still call the peregrine falcon the real racer of the world of birds, Having a modest size for a bird of prey, this representative of the falcon's family has great physical strength, agility, and grip. Often a prey of this hunter surpasses it in size. Without exaggeration, this bird is unique, at least because it's capable of speeding up to 200 miles per hour. And according to some reports, its speed limit is 242 miles per hour. Here's an interesting fact. Peregrine falcons have long been used by humans as a domesticated warrior capable of hunting game. Even a sport was invented for this skillful feathered creature. It's called falconry, and the peregrine falcon has no equal in it. Harpy eagle. The American harpy eagle is so peculiar that, on the one hand, it looks like a human in a bird costume. But on the other hand, the feathered creature looks like some mutant from Area 51. The main thing is not to focus too much on its appearance. Otherwise, you can forget that the bird is in fact predatory and very dangerous. The harpy eagle can have a wingspan of 6.5 feet. It mainly feeds on sloths, monkeys, and other big representatives of the fauna. That's all, guys. Which birds seem the most dangerous to you? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you later.